Dear painters and friends, we have the last part of this series. In this part, we will look at painting the armor, helmet and sword. I have chosen a very simple, quick style again, using only acrylic paint. First, I painted all the metal parts with black paint. This prepared the same base for the subsequent silver colors. All metal colors look better on a black base. As the first color I chose dark silver, and with this color I painted the chainmail and the places on the armor that are in the shadows. I turn the figure and under the table lamp I find out which parts are more illuminated, which reflect the light and which are in the shadow. It is enough to do one layer, depending on the dilution of the paint, maximum 2 layers. The figure will have a castle wall behind it and the sun will shine on the figure. Therefore, the back side can be darker. Then the lower parts of the hands, the side of the helmet, the sides of the shoes or the lower part of the sword blade. Once I have the dark parts painted, I go back to the beginning. This time I choose a light silver color and painted the parts of the armor that are illuminated. The top of the helmet, the top of the left hand, the top half of the knee parts, the tops of the boots or the top of the sword blade. I also highlight the small details on the armor, gloves, helmet visor or rivets. Both shades of silver are ready and dry. I prepare washes, which are very thin colors, black and brown. I start with black, which I thin out a bit and start applying the paint to the armor. I try to create a filter and darken the areas that are in the shadow. I'm careful not to create large deposits of paint. If you miss a drop that dries, you will ruin the base when you remove the dry drop. The dried paint will peel off and create a sharp edge on the surface. I also use paint to highlight rivets, individual armor plates or chainmail rings. I apply 2 or 3 coats of paint to areas that are more in the shade, as needed. I always look at which areas are more exposed to light. I use the same method when painting with brown paint. I dilute the paint with water and apply it to areas that are in the shade. The brown paint will give the armor a more realistic look, and the armor will not be just black and silver. I let everything dry, or I add another coat to areas that are more in the shade. I go back to the beginning and prepare two shades of silver paint, this time light shades. I choose the lightest chroma shade, which is really bright. I start highlighting the places that reflect the light with the light shade. I use table lamp that shines on the figure and shows where the light is reflected to help me find these places. These are exactly the places where the silver color belongs. I dilute the color so as not to create sharp transitions. I use chrome color to represent the so-called top lights. This is the brightest and most contrasting place, which is up to the white color. Sometimes they are large areas, and sometimes they are just sharp edges or the edges of the armor. I paint the chainmail according to the shape, how wavy it is. I don't press the brush because I only need to paint individual rings on the surface. In this way, I also highlight the rivets on the pants, small buckles or the top of the shoes. For the sword, I apply color to the upper blade of the sword. This was the last part of the figure, and I was able to glue the knight to the finished base. The knight on the finished base looks very good. I'm happy with the result. I know where the painting and the process need to be improved, but I will save that for another figure. Thank you very much for your time and support in watching the night paint. I look forward to seeing you on the next project. Thank you and see you soon.